It is Veterans Day, November 11th, 2021. Thanks for watching the Calvary briefing. I am thankful for all of those who have served in the armed forces. I'm thankful for their service and for the life of freedom that I've been able to live here in the United States. This week I was reading an article by one of my favorite authors, Tim Challies, that really grabbed my attention, and I began to think of many of you who are a part of my life here at Calvary Church. The title of the article was In Honor of Simple Faith. And the article simply pointed out that God makes us very different from one another. We have different gifts, different talents, different abilities. He even makes us in such a way that we relate to Him in different ways. Some of us feel God's pleasure when we are deeply engaged in worship. Some feel that pleasure when we are deeply engaged in service. But I have also observed that God makes some people to have a faith that is very simple, and He makes others with a faith that is what we could call very complex. Some people come to faith and they enter a lifelong battle to believe some of the Bible's most basic promises about forgiveness, assurance, perseverance. And they might spend their entire Christian life from new birth until they die, scouring through the scriptures and reading good books and listening to sermons and lectures, all to help them understand such things. On the other hand, some people come to faith and they never seem to wrestle with much at all. They take God at His word and they feel very little need to wade out into deep theological waters, as it were. And their attitude seems to be, God says it, I believe it, and it's true, and that's it. Their personalities are such that they don't ever really struggle with deep doubts or even ask what some of us would call big questions. But here's the rub. People of complex faith sometimes look at those with simplistic faith and say that they are apathetic, that they just don't care about the deep things of God. On the other hand, some people with simple faith look at those with complex faith and say, oh, they are just obsessing over things that really don't matter and things that aren't important. And something happens occasionally. Sometimes these two groups of people can become suspicious of each other. Think about a person with complex faith. They're committed to studying and wrestling and listening to sermons, podcasts, and lectures. They love to read good books. They love to go to conferences. And that's good. But this person can sometimes become frustrated with others who have a very simple faith. It's a faith that is no less real, no less tested, no less tenacious, but just much less complicated. Yet to that person, those with simple faith can look apathetic and maybe even unspiritual. Meanwhile, others with simple faith are prone to grow really tired of people with complex faith, and they see their faith as just obsessing about things that don't matter. And because this person doesn't wrestle with big questions and big issues, they don't really understand why anyone else would either. And because they get little joy or benefit from constantly reading Christian books, they grow tired of dealing with others who really do. Well, in this scenario, both people are people of faith, but both people face the danger of judging one another and being critical of one another. Tim Challies writes this in his article: I was once chatting with one of the older women from our church. Each of us was recounting the giant stack of books we had read in the past year, each one an attempt to better understand God, each one an attempt to address a weakness, each one an attempt to increment our growth in sanctification. And along the way, we realized that our spouses may have read 3, possibly 4 books between them in the last several years. We paused to laugh at ourselves and to consider this simple fact. There's no evidence that we are any holier than our spouses. There's no evidence that we are languishing while they are thriving. They are just different from us. Different in their spiritual makeup, different in the way they love and honor God, perhaps different in the depth of the pit God has to dig us out of. We agreed we would choose to honor that difference instead of striving against it, to celebrate it instead of lamenting it. And so, as you're listening to this briefing today, maybe you are in the simple camp of God said it, I believe it must be true, let's go. Maybe you are in the camp of the more complex faith where you need to grapple with issues and struggle with some things in order to really own them. Well, in either way, understand we are different precisely because God has chosen to make us different. I think so often of 1 Corinthians 12:27, now you are the body of Christ. That's you all, but individually members of it. Let's enjoy the different kinds of people that God puts in our church and in our lives.